it goes in the water, and he realizes the rope's not attached to the anchor. And then he just like doesn't even talk about anything, doesn't say anything, doesn't look anywhere, just sees it and goes in, just dives in. I remember seeing the bubbles, and I remember them ceasing for just a split second. And then he comes up, throws the anchor in this little boat, and then jumps back up on the boat and just goes back to what he was doing. He didn't talk about it. He didn't be like, "Did you see what I did?" He didn't like do anything. And I was like mind blown. He just dove down. I can like picture that. And I just really was like, hey, sometimes things need to be done, and there does not need to be a discussion. You just get the job done.
Every single individual has a story to tell, and they're great stories that need to be heard.
I want every listener to know they have the ability to change the world.
Welcome to the 1720 Podcast.
What's up, Mountain Movers? Welcome back to the 1720 Podcast. We are honored to have our friend Eddie Penney joining us today. Thanks for joining us, my man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We're going to get into some heavy stories and talk about his new book, Unafraid. But before we start, I know your pump-up music, walkout music is Motley Crue, and they recently came to town.
Yes, they did.
Can they still bring it?
They can. You know, Vince Neil, when they're live, though, he kind of misses a lot of the lyrics, but it's Motley Crue. They can't mess it up. They're Motley Crue. Yeah. So it was good. It was a great show.
It was a good concert.
It was a great show.
Fisher had tickets, and I forget, it was like Poison, them, Def Leppard, a couple others. I'm like, yep. I don't know for a Monday night if I'm going to screw up my calendar to see those guys.
Is this recent?
Yeah, it was like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it was a Globe Life. It was good.
Ah, but dang.
It was real good.
None of those are my hits. I can't talk Motley Crue, Poison, or Def Leppard with you. Sorry.
Is that what you go to when you crank it up a notch, Motley Crue?
Sometimes, yeah. I get my 80s feel on, you know, that or like Journey or something. But yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm listening to freaking Frank Sinatra. So it really just depends.
Dang.
Sinatra?
Yeah.
What's your go-to Sinatra jam?
Just the essentials, put it on play, usually when I'm cooking. I love that.
Okay.
Like just on the background, like of the house speakers, and just cook.
Yeah. There you go.
I've tried
cook
worship.
My cereal.
I've tried worship a few times with the heavy lifting. It lasts like one set.
No, because
I gotta have some metal, man.
Yeah, Kev goes to like dark death metal,
like
super metallic.
Red's a freaking
Christian.
They're good.
Yeah,
Red's good. Ashes Remain, I think, is one of them. They're good. There's a couple of groups that are legit that you can listen to. Skillet, they're pretty good.
Yep. So he's got the drop.
I just feel like I'm in a different universe right now. Like I have none of those for me.
What do you listen to?
I'm more like a 90s rap guy.
90s rap?
Yeah.
I would never have pegged that.
Yeah.
It's just no.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
not even close.
When you were talking about Sinatra, I was actually thinking about there's a Jay-Z song called My Way that he does a riff off of the Sinatra bit. It's really good.
So if I said Criss Cross, you would kind of perk up?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, they'll make
Criss
you jump.
Cross, they will. They will.
What, they'll make you jump?
Yeah. Just a little dad in there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, all the 90s rap and the 2000s rap and the current rap. That's mostly where I hang out.
So you're like a Tupac, Snoop Dogg?
Yeah.
Were you more the East or West Coast?
Both, because I'm from Houston, so like.
So you had really no choice.
No choice, except for, we're just instantly in the ditch here. UGK, do you know UGK?
I don't.
That's Underground Kings. They're from Port Arthur. That was a pretty salty group. 8 Ball and MJG?
Mm-mm.
No, that's all like the third coast rap that's around Houston area, growing up in the 90s.
Gotcha.
Not missing much.
No, I don't think so.
No, okay. I'll hit you with some Spotify links later.
Okay.
You'll be like, oh, that's actually a good song from the 90s.
There we go.
So,
90s are good.
Yeah.
Better than today, I think.
That's a dad move to say that, right?
I think so.
Because the boys listen to all the raps and all the songs, and they don't love the 90s as much as I do. They love the Travis Scott and stuff like this.
That's like real rap. That's like murder rap.
Yes, it is murder.
That's real gang stuff.
That is murder rap. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Welcome to Matthew 1720.
Yeah, right.
Gangster rap.
We haven't even like hit an elevator spiel here yet, and Icebreaker got us into the super ditch. But you did you have another one?
No. That one went for a while, so let's scrap the second. Let's elevator pitch.
No, what's the second one?
Guilty pleasure. So like a snack.
Ooh, I like this.
Oh man, dude, cereal.
Just the sugary Oreo cereal.
Gross.
It is so. Yes, it's good. Like I like the s'mores, Count Chocula.
Yeah,
that takes you back.
Yes.
Like
it's on the end caps
cereal
right
is probably my number one. Which it's not allowed in the house, but we have 3 kids in the house, so it's always in the house.
Yeah.
So it's just not. It's always a battle in my house, especially with the pantry.
It doesn't fill you up, man. Like you can have a half a box, and
that's why you eat the full box.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm here for that too. Although I don't do like that super sugary, but every night about 10 o'clock, I'm like, I'm gonna have a bowl of cereal.
What kind of cereal? You like the healthier kind? Like
no, like Chex. But
Chex are good.
We get the cinnamon Chex or the chocolatey Chex.
Oh, the chocolate ones are the bomb. They're so good.
Usually we're crushing 4, 5, 9 boxes of chocolate Chex at the house.
Don't look at the stats because they're not.
Look, dude, look at me.
They're not good either. Oh. But I pour almond milk in it. Does that count?
Yeah. Well,
that takes away like 15 grams of sugar right there.
My brown rice, my chicken, my turkey all day, all 3 meals, and then I'll crush a half a box of Oreo cereal at 7:30 p.m. And I'm like, cool. Way to cancel your day.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, it could have been worse, right?
I'll start tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Boy, instant ditch, but we'll get it back, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll get it back. All right, so here's how we usually start elevator spiel, right? Like you're on an elevator, you get a couple seconds to introduce yourself. Who's Eddie?
Eddie is just a guy, was in the military for 20 years, learned a lot, thought he knew a lot more than he really did know, and just trying to improve daily. That's who I am. I'm constantly failing. I push myself and then just learn, and soak up the wisdom that's around me.
Yeah.
That's me in a nutshell right there.
Well, go ahead, Kev.
Well, just congrats on the book, man.
Thank you very much. It was good to finally get it out. That was a process. So
I hammered it out in 72 hours, which I always thought with people, like when they say that, I'm like, how in the world did they do that? And the reason why I was able to do it is not because I'm a speed reader by any stretch. It's captivating from the very jump. Mm-hmm. And I was shocked to see what kind of vulnerability was in this book. And I mean, it helped me. I told you off air a couple of God moments I had with it.
Good.
So it's impacting me, and I know it's going to impact a lot of people. Congratulations, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Seriously. Thank you.
How big of an undertaking is that? Humongous?
Not, no. I mean, it's a lot of work. You think you're done, or you think you've got this chapter done, then you're not done. And then I thought it was fun. It was great. I mean, it was therapeutic, kind of vomiting on paper, but it was also, I mean, there'd be times my wife would come in and I'm on the floor crying. So it was the most emotional time of my life. Considering the last couple of years, I just learned what emotions were, to be honest with you. I mean, this just like really, I mean, it was rough in a great way. And,
like in a sense, it like requires you to take a step back once you start writing things down and reflect on it in a different way. Or?
I just like when I do some of those stories that are in the book, I go back to those places.
Yeah.
And it's not just like, oh, I can see it, I can smell it, I can taste it, I can feel it. I can just feel what I felt in those moments. It's pretty intense. Some of them I had to stop. I couldn't, and I had to like walk away for days. Some of them were that bad. And to be honest with you, some stories I was afraid to go do it because I knew what was going to happen. And, Louis' story, for example, is like, that was the first chapter we did, and it was one of the hardest for me.
And so we talk about this when we have a special forces person. We don't bring any of that up. And then I read the book and I'm like, wow, this is out there. This is what we're going to talk about. And man,
well, that's it. That's the pot, right? That kind of made the product at the end, right? So there's this, and then, forge through all this stuff. And then you kind of have to talk about it. You can't not talk about it.
Yeah.
So, and plus, we remember him. We always talk about never forget, all that stuff. And people are like, oh, does it bother you that we talk about them? Like, no, I mean, I want to talk about my buddies. I want to talk about the great things they did. They were legends in my eyes and their kids' eyes and everyone else's that knew them. So it's good. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah. To our Mount Mover tribe, if you were one of the lucky recipients of the signed book, I will say this. I don't even know if I told you this. Mm-hmm. Every single one has a different message in it. And I realized this because I'm a forgetful person. And the one I was reading, I had to give to somebody because I had forgotten the copies at home and I was having a lunch with somebody. But I was like, oh, sweet. It's a different message. All 10 different messages, man.
Yeah, gotta be different.
Yeah.
I appreciate you signing those and passing them out.
No, of course.
Those are always great.
I appreciate you guys passing them out. That's awesome what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
I see it on the media. That's awesome.
Right, go ahead, Kevin.
So at the end of each chapter, you have a hot wash and after action review, kind of summarizing things. I guess the importance of that before we start getting started on your story. Like, what's the importance of a hot wash? What is it?
So a hot wash is a no kidding real world take of what happened, like a debrief. Like we just did like a mission or a field exercise or whatever it may be. You bring everyone in that was both sides, the role players, all assets, if there was helicopter pilots, operators, medics, dog handlers, all of them. You bring them all in and you talk about all right, what happened starting from phase 1 to the last phase? What were the good things, but more importantly, what were the bad things? And the reason why we really concentrate on the bad things is those bad things can get people killed.
Yeah.
And we don't want that, obviously, or hurt or whatever it is. So you bring them in and it's a no kidding, no sugarcoat, here it is, and, most of the times it's good job and, hey, let's tweak this, let's tweak that. And then you roll on and next time you don't make those mistakes. And you have it you're in front of everyone. It's not like, hey, let's pull you aside. It's not like tearing people apart. It is constructive criticism. It works very well and it's extremely effective. So
yeah.
We were initially doing this book. I was like, hey, why don't we do a letter? I wanted to do a letter to my kids. And I'm going to get choked up every time I talk about my kids. Kids and God, they kind of really get me. But they got put through the ringer. I'm sure you could, just by reading the book, you could tell. And I was like, I want to do a letter to them, lessons learned for them, a debrief for them. Please don't make these mistakes.
Yeah.
And if you do, stand by, because they will. And so Keith and I talked about it, the co-writer, and we mentioned hot wash in the book before. And then he has a good friend, JB Lieutenant Colonel, he's a retired Air Force, JB Marshall. He said we gave him a copy of the initial without these end of the chapters because that was something separate. So he's like, hey, why don't you guys mentioned hot wash. Why don't you guys do this? And you have the letter and a couple. He's like, why don't you make a hot wash at the end of each chapter? We're like, light bulb. There we go. That's perfect. Thank you. So he gets the credit for that one. So we went back in and the way we did it, which is back to that emotional state, is we would read a chapter. We would both read the chapter. And within 15 minutes, we had to be on a call recording, and we would interview, and I would just at first I would tell him what I'm feeling, what am I thinking. I'd be like, this part I felt this, and then he would ask some questions based off his. And if we weren't on a call within 15 minutes, no kidding, 15 minutes, the timer started, we would not do it. We would have to reread the chapter and jump back on because I was like, dude, I need we have got to have these feelings as real as possible. So that's how we did the hot wash. And that was, dude, it was brutal. It was very brutal, but, it's real and it's raw. And that's what our goal was.
I've seen them play out in business a few times where at first it's very uncomfortable. You don't want to be called out. Nobody wants to be called out. But then over time you start craving it because you understand it's for a good purpose. It's for us to get better as a team. And so over time it's fun. It's fun seeing those processes man, I don't like this. And then all of a sudden I crave it. Kind of like the gym, I guess.
Yeah.
When you first get started, waking up at 4:00, you don't want to do it at all. And then now there's no choice to make. You're up, you're doing it. And
exactly.
I feel like that's those AARs for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same thing. It's pretty much the same thing, just a different name.
Yeah,
for sure.
And you just have to become accustomed to, at least from my experience, to doing it in a way that you'll all know sitting there. When you get on the phone with Keith, it's not destructive. You're not doing it you're doing it in advancement of the goal. You got to break over the top of that barrier and they're like, oh, this is fine. It's great. It's just a little bit of discipline to do it.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of productivity around it, even if it hurts at the moment.
Yeah, and it's good to pull out hey, man, I messed up right here. I don't know how many mess ups are in that book. I was like, gosh, did I do anything right back then? But it's good to call it out. It is good. I think we all can agree that it's good to call it out. Okay, I'm angry right now. or whatever it may be, call it out. What is it? And then let's march on.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was definitely good.
So there's that Jimmy V speech. He says, if you've laughed and cried and made an impact, you've had a good day.
Yeah.
And throughout this book, I had all things happen. And because he brought it up, there's a letter that he gets from his daughter as part of the book towards the end. And then my lips quiver and it's not even written to me, man. And then,
that's a bad one.
Yeah.
I mean, a great one, but
unbelievable.
Dang.
Yeah. What a moment.
Dang.
Well, let's talk through and get through some of the stories that are in the book. And start. I don't know where the beginning is of your story, but let's start at the beginning.
The book. I've got this awesome outline in front of me. Thank you. I have the book right in front of me.
Yeah, Kev did a mini book report for Eddie on his own book.
It's awesome.
It was for Stewart too.
It is so awesome.
Fair.
The commas are in the right place and everything. This is
false.
perfect.
No, the commas are not in the right spot. I'll submit a revision.
So the beginning of the book kind of goes back to childhood, like kind of where the drive for the spec ops world came from. And that was me just being, growing up in Cincinnati, Ohio, played sports, football, baseball, always in the woods as a kid, always in the woods, sharpening spears, going fishing, doing stuff that I probably shouldn't have, like with fireworks, blowing things up, lighting them in my house, paintball guns in my house, like just boy stuff, right?
Yeah.
Guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all normal
Sorry,
things.
Mom. But yeah, and then I always had a thing for the military. Like I would go on my dad's. My parents got divorced when I was probably like 7 or 8. I'd go to my dad's on every other weekend and once on the like Wednesday night for dinner or whatever. But we'd always be watching like Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, Stallone movies, Van Damme movies, like all those movies. I was like, dude, these guys are awesome. They're getting the bad guys. They work out. They got huge muscles. Like, yeah, I want that. What is that? And I just fell in love, and it just kind of like stuck with me. I mean, there's times like when the book The Firm came out by John Grisham. I read that. I'm like, I want to be a lawyer, but that like died down like in 60 days. I'm like, okay, I got to be outside. And it just kind of morphed. And that's what I always wanted to do. And then when I was in 8th grade, I was playing football, and I went to freshman year, I went to practice, and the guys were just like, I was a late bloomer. I late bloomer. And the guys were way bigger than me. So I went home, I told my dad, I was like, hey dude, I can't, they're too big. They're just, nope, not happening. Mm-hmm. He's like, okay. And I don't remember that exact interaction, but I didn't play. That was it. So I think probably literally the next day or the day after, a friend goes, hey, you're not playing football anymore. You want to join the swim team? I was like, no, you guys wear Speedos. There's like, it's just no. And I'm like, I can swim. And he's like, just try it. I was like, all right. So I called my mom, hey, I'm not coming home. Go to the practice. And the first thing is like, hey, jump in. Let's see what you got. Swim 25 yards, one side of the pool to the other. And I get to that, grab the side of the pool after 25 yards. I'm like, I'm dying.
Mm.
My lungs are on fire. I have flames coming out of my ear. Like, this is just misery. And I fell in love. I'm like, just the workout and the push. And I'm like, this is something like I need help with. Like, I just stayed. And then swam up until my senior year. And then my coach passed. And my senior year, I didn't do really anything. And then a guy that I swam with that was a year ahead of me, he went to the Marine Corps boot camp down at Parris Island Parris Island in Beaufort, South Carolina. So his family goes, do you want to go down there and go to his graduation? And it was like a 2-day thing. I was like, yeah, of course. Like, I'd love to see my buddy. So we go down there, and I'm set on this Navy SEAL thing. Cause I'm like just watching the movies. I'm like, they just look the coolest. They just, they wear sunglasses. I'm like, how cool is this? Right. Not really grasping this combat thing.
Yeah.
Right. Just what the movies show. The good guys always, they get it.
They got the cool gear too.
They got the great gear. It's like, it's so cool. And the fast cars, they get the women, they had all the things like that, was being fed to me. So we go down there, and I see like the obstacle course of Parris Island. I see a march, and I see the guns, and I see how like the uniformity, and just, I'm like, man, I was like blown away. Like this is awesome. So I was like, okay, so the Marines it is. So I come back, and I think I sign, or my parents really sign, because I was 17, to enlist in the military after my senior year in high school. And I did the Marines. I love the Marines. I love the discipline. I love the growth that I received there, but it just wasn't my place. I just didn't feel at home. And I'm not ripping on the Marine Corps. I'm not ripping on the Marines. I love what they do. They are, in my perspective, they are number one, like all in all, like most disciplined service that I've seen. But I still wanted that SEAL thing. And the reason that pushed me to that was I tried out for sniper school probably 2.5, 3 years in when I was in the Marines. I really wanted to be a sniper, but you had to be a expert shooter. And I was that's the highest. And I was a marksman, the lowest. And so they sent me to like get me an expert so I could even go to the school. And I missed it by 1 point. I was like, well, this really stinks. So I asked, hey, can I go again? So I think it was like 3 months later, they sent me again, and I missed it again by 1 point. Oh. I'm like, dude, what's going on right now? And so I was like, one more time. one more time.
Run it back.
Yeah, well, let me do it one more time. And then I think I had to wait I had to wait so many times because I was coming up when it was time for me to get out. I would have to extend or what. I was like, I'll do whatever if I can get to sniper school, whatever it is. I go again and I miss by one freaking point again. I'm like, man, that's 3 times. And I'm like, dude, that it's just insane. Yeah. And I was down on myself for a couple months. I was like, I'm just going to go back to Cincinnati, Ohio. I'll be a cop. I'll do that. And then just something in me kind of switched. I was like, no, I'm going to do my original dream to be a SEAL. So I went to the Navy recruiter. I was like, how do I do this? And did the process. I had to be out of the Marines, completely do my 4 years. I had to be out one day so they could urine test me, make sure I don't have any, I'm clean. Do all my out processing with the Marines and then redo the in processing with the Navy that's where the fun thing kind of is like, you spend all this money just to redo it. That's another issue. So I enlisted in the Navy, had to go to a place called the TPU Transition Process Unit, which is if you were in any other service and you're coming into the Navy, they kind of get your stuff going and then you go to whatever school you go to. So luckily I did not have to go to Navy boot camp. I don't think I would have made it. I probably would have lost my mind. But then I had to go to gunner's mate school because you had to have a job. There was no, they call it SO. The SEAL is SO. That's your rate or your job. They didn't have that at the time. So I went to gunner's mate A school, which gives me my job. So that was like 5-6 months. And then after that, I went out to Buds, San Diego, and then started the SEAL cycle there.
Yeah.
And so that brings us to 2001 when I was out there. Yeah.
There's a couple things in there before we go into the Buds that there's like, we have this thread of small defining moments, right?
Yes.
And so there's a couple, and sorry, man, I didn't have it in the book report, but it just popped in my head as you were talking, your dad moment on the boat.
Yes. Man. We talk about that a lot more now because he didn't remember when I brought this up.
Which makes it even more fantastic.
It is. It just goes to show you never know who's watching you.
That's right.
You never know. And we're all guilty. We do something like not pick up that piece of trash or whatever it is. I mean, something simple as like picking up a piece of trash is an example for someone else. I should do the same thing.
That's right.
But we in the summers or whatever, we'd rent a houseboat and we go down to Dale Hollow. It's down in Tennessee, this lake. And attached to the houseboat, they'd have like a little dinghy boat, like a little canoe motorized or whatever, have a little outboard engine on it. And we were going out to go fishing like around the cove. And you always take the little guys, to take the houseboat. My dad, I can't remember if he threw in the rope with the anchor or he was pulling it up and there was no anchor on it, but I think it went overboard and it goes in the water. And he realizes the rope's not attached to the anchor. Yeah, it had to fall into it because it fell in, and then he just doesn't even talk about anything, doesn't say anything, doesn't look anywhere, just sees it, and goes in, just dives in. I was like, okay, there, man, whoa, dude, bro, whoa, that was awesome. He just dives in, he goes down. I remember seeing the bubbles, and I remember them ceasing for just a split second, and then he comes up. Throws the anchor in this little boat and then jumps back up on the boat and just goes back to what he was doing. He didn't talk about it. He didn't be like, did you see what I did? He didn't do anything. And I was like, mind blown.
Well, how old are you right now?
Oh man, probably 10-ish, 9, 10, 11.
Yeah, it's close
somewhere
enough.
In there, circa.
Yeah, sure.
But I was like, man, he didn't say anything. He just dove down. I can picture that. And I just really was like, hey, sometimes things need to be done and there does not need to be a discussion. You just get the job done. And sometimes we probably should talk about it, but that was just one of those times where he's like, he did it. I was like, holy example. Yeah, that has shaped a lot of my work ethic is that one incident. That one time.
So circle back to it now. Obviously you've spoken with him about the story.
Yeah.
What's he say now? Does he even remember it?
Yeah, he does now. And he's like, I was trying to catch the anchor before it hit the bottom. And I was like, did you? And he goes, absolutely not. He's like, I found it though. And I was like, yeah, you did.
That thing was gunning down
he
there.
just it was just impressive, And it looking now at it, it probably would be like that's what you were excited about, but it didn't matter to my little eyes then. It did.
Well, yeah. I mean, to come back to the point of the story or the purpose of this telling of the story is like, man, there are moments in your life that, whether you've acknowledged them or not, have profound impacts on other people.
100%, especially your children.
Yes.
Like, gosh. And there's good things. There's also like the bad ones, right?
Oh, yeah.
I shouldn't be doing this. And there's my kid.
Yeah. Right.
Why'd I just say that?
Right. For sure.
Yeah, like my nerd swear spreadsheet I got rolling right now.
I don't think that's nerdy at all, man. I don't think that's nerdy at all.
Yeah.
Well, that's the outcropping of acknowledging and redirecting, right? That's not the nerd spreadsheet about your cursing is fixing something, right? So it's not like it's nerdy, but also it's also admirable in the sense of like, man, we're fixing that. Like I saw that something's coming as a result of something I did. Yeah. We're fixing it.
But you're being proactive. Yeah. That's the problem. Everyone's like kind of reactive, or they don't do anything. They just kind of stand still versus like, hey, I should probably do this nice stuff. Because after this, there will be something else.
Oh, yeah.
And that's okay. That's just how we get sculpted and get better. And that's the joy.
Yeah, you're like just twiddling your thumbs like, what flaw of mine are you going to show me next?
You sitting there twiddling your thumb, not doing anything. Okay, let's go.
There it is. All right, so I'm circling back to the prep sheet because there's a story in here I want to, before we hit to Buds and SEAL training, it says the story of literally seeing Jesus.
Oh,
and so I'm always intrigued.
Oh, man.
And maybe intrigued isn't the right word.
The haunting of my life.
Man, people have different encounters with the man.
Man, I'm getting chills. You just said that. I'm getting chills because that. So
yeah, come on.
This is back in. Just to kind of like lay the foundation here. My mom would take me to a church, and I don't remember much of the church, and I don't know how many times we went, but I know that I would go in the basement. I think we played with stuff. I'm sure they talked about things, but they always had vanilla wafer cookies. I mean, you know, little vanilla wafers. Those are so freaking good, especially like banana pudding.
Oh, yeah.
But I guess I was so hyper. They wouldn't give me these cookies. I got like an apple. Not like knowing now, I'm like, man, there's tons of sugar in apples as well. So like, I don't know if they knew what they were doing, but like, this is good. But they would never give me the cookies because I was so hyper. I'm like, all right, rock on. So, and then I just didn't like it, or my mom didn't like it, or we just stopped going, or we didn't go, or whatever. I don't have a lot of memories of that place. I remember red carpet, and that's about it, and the cookies. That's really all I got. But one night, it has to be around my parents' divorce because my mom was alone. And I was like kind of laying in my bed, and if I'm looking at my feet to the left, there's my door. And then like directly to my left as I'm laying down, I have a bookshelf right next to my closet. And I wake up for some reason. It's so cool. You can still see these things. Mm-hmm. Looking over, and I see Jesus as you would see him like on a painting or whatever. You got the white flowing robes, the perfect beard, the perfect hair, guaranteed use Pantene for that one. I mean, he's just so perfect. And he's just like, emotionless. He's no smile, no grin, no sadness, just kind of like staring at me. And he's transparent. I can see my bookshelf with all the books, on the back side of him. And I'm just like looking at him. I'm looking over to my side. I'm like looking at him, and I don't know what to say. I'm frozen. I really don't know what to say because, well, that's one, never happened to me. And I just don't know what to say. And he has this like glowing. So the room's kind of glowing, right? And I don't know how long it was. Maybe a couple seconds, maybe 5 seconds, maybe 0.5 seconds. I really don't know, but I know what I saw, and I wasn't dreaming. I remember I was sitting up in my bed, and it just goes pitch black. Soon as the darkness hit, and I mean, there was nothing. I mean, it was black as black as black. I got extremely scared. I was very terrified. I tried to scream for my mom, and I was like, when you're real scared, you can't really open your mouth. I'm like, oh, Mom. And I finally, I don't know if I got the mom out, but I got enough courage to run to her room, and I got in my bed, in her bed. I'm sorry. And I can't remember if I told her or what, but that story is I'd never told anyone for the longest time. I mean, until my adult life. Like, I don't think I've told my mom. I think I might have said I like saw something, but from that day on, I was scared to death of Jesus. And then when I got into and then from that instance, I started sleeping with the blankets over my head. And then maybe 2 or 3 nights later, when I'm sleeping with my head or with my blanket over my head, I guess my body found its way out, but I feel like tickling in my armpit. This is so weird to say. I feel tickling in my armpit and like little kids giggling. So I hear that and I'm like scared to death. And I go run to my mom's room again. I'm like, what the heck is going on? I just don't know what's going on. And then the next night, or maybe the night after that, I'm back in my bed and, you know, I have the nightlight on now. I'm under the covers, but instead of where where your pillow goes, I would put my feet on my pillow and I would sleep without a pillow where my feet would go. I was extremely tactful back in the day.
This will teach you, buddy.
Yeah, you'll never get me now. And I don't know what age I was when I actually went back to my pillow, but I slept under my covers until a sophomore in high school.
Wow.
I was scared to death of him. I was scared to death of Jesus.
Okay, so pregnant pause there, which indicates past tense was, right? So this story flips at some point.
Oh yeah.
So is it then? Is it when you flip over? Is it later when it's like, tell me the narrative.
So for that, it was so bad that in the book, I went and spent the night at my buddy's house, and his dad, I did not know was a pastor, and they had a picture of Jesus. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. And I called my mom. I was like, come get me, please. And she came and got me, and I went home. Like it was that bad. I had, when I was in 7th, 8th, 9th grade, I would be watching TV and I would have these like feelings and like, I wouldn't say visions. I would just think about Jesus bursting down the door, coming in, taking me away or taking my mom away from me. Don't ask me. I didn't read spiritual books, religion, obviously. I didn't read anything besides like watch like Saved by the Bell. Like, that really wasn't on there. No. Or like G.I. Joe or just like, normal stuff, I think. But I like when I say I was scared, I was extremely scared of the church and of Jesus. I thought he was the boogeyman. He was my boogeyman for the longest time. So should I just keep going with where that kind of turned?
Yeah, take me there.
So, I mean, all through deployments, I'd say deployment, after deployment number 5 or 6 is when I start, this is on my I'm dating, would be my second wife. And she was a Christian. And she's like, hey, let's go to church. And I'm like,
yeah, no.
What? And I remember times she would go to church, Life Church up in Oklahoma. She would go and I'd have her drop me off like on a Friday so I could watch the Bengals game.
Yeah.
Like I did not want to go.
Right.
I would go have beers and watch football while she went. And like looking back out now, I'm like, you scumbag. Mm. But like I was scared. I really didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't understand. I didn't know what's going on. But now after going to Wild at Heart, a satellite camp for them with John Eldridge, I think I've done like 5 or 6 of those bad boys. I would have the ultimatum to go there for my second wife when we were engaged. She's like, your drinking's getting out of hand. You need to go. You need help. I was like, I don't need help, but I'll do it to like protect this, whatever.
Yeah. Even
though I'm like the problem here. So I go, and I remember going in there looking for alcohol. There was none. They had sodas. And then I don't know, man, but like the way John Eldridge does it, he brings in, I'm sure you guys are familiar with John Eldridge's Wild at Heart, and like he brings in like Braveheart, the movie Braveheart, Gladiator, The Patriot, Kingdom of Heaven, like all these great like war, like action films. And he like talks about how it's so biblical. And I'm like, you have to understand, when I'm doing this, I'm very scared, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, I'm here. Maybe I need to do something. Maybe I need to like kind of open up my heart a little bit. Maybe I need to do something. Maybe I need to try something. So I tried it, and it got to the point where I did, I prayed for the first time, which is super awkward when I did that. Like the sun was getting up. I'm like, of course, chalking it up as a coincidence, and just all these things started happening at this camp. And I'm like, man, like, is this real?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why was I so deceived? Like, I don't understand. I was 32, 33 years old when this happened. But it's taken me back. And I mean, now I'm, a follower of Christ for sure. But like once finding him, that's how good he is.
Yeah.
Once finding him, he showed where he was this whole frickin' time. Countless explosions, countless gunfights, countless just crazy trauma. He was there the whole time. And like, I finally got to see it.
Yeah.
He showed me, like, why did, like, you see, like the Louis story, why did I leave? Why did I leave? Why did I leave? And yeah, it's chalk it up to that, because that's what it is.
All right, so we told a story arc over the top.
We did, sorry.
So I encourage us to do it. So what I want to do is I'm going to put a pin right there in that moment. Bing, right?
Done.
Let's go back to Buds, right? Because now I think we can tell through all that story to get here and see if we can see them in parallel, right? Like,
gotcha.
As you talk through that story, let's talk through, can we see in that story, or can we see like, this was what happened, but now I can see with the benefit of hindsight, here was Jesus right there the whole time. Let's see if we can walk through that simultaneously.
So Buds, getting out to Buds was extremely easy for me. And I say that very humbly. Buds is a kick in the butt. It no kidding is, but like, just the camaraderie, the boys, the physical fitness, like, just like, something about being miserable is kind of cool.
You and Kev, man.
It's like, it's kind of cool. It's like, dude, I can do this now.
Yeah.
Like, it just shows you what the body and the mind, especially the mind, that mindset, what it can do for you. And it was awesome. Like, it really taught me who I was. I mean, my mindset is, I mean, it's definitely not where I want it to be, but it's like way better than what it was, like, obviously beforehand. But it was awesome. And it really was not that hard for me. I had like maybe one or two things that I had difficulties with. Didn't fail anything, luckily. But just like pulled me through. It seemed easy. It just seemed real easy. And the run sucked. I'm not saying, like, just the whole process in general seemed easy to go through. Didn't get any injuries. I was surrounded by great guys, like my whole boat crew the whole time. Not one of us quit. From Hell Week, we were all together. I think we might have been the only boat crew where all of us were together. Mm-hmm. It's just like little things you want to start really, like, getting chills again. You want to start thinking about things, and you really like, man, why is this? Why this over here and not this over here? Because all the guys around me, they're no different than I am. We're all humans, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, but you go through it, and then just the slow progression. Once I got to SEAL Team 2, going to Iraq and Afghanistan, I had this like slow progression into combat. It wasn't like, we're dropping you off in country, here it comes, and that's like a full frontal assault. It was like little things, and then just got forged more and more and more. And then finally, when I got to our Tier 1 unit, it was game on.
Yeah.
Do you think it's partly because you were a little bit older? Because you were probably 4 to 5 years older than most of the other recruits?
Yeah, I had that discipline of the Marines. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
The mindset that you have to have going into that's incredible. Like, I have a pretty strong mindset, but I'm in my upper 30s, like,
right,
I've had a lot of life, like, to have that sort of mindset going in. What's the average recruit? 18, 19 years old?
I'd say probably average is probably 20, 21, to be honest with you, because you got college guys coming in there. You've got very few, I'd say probably 10, 20% 18.
Yeah.
I'd say it's more in the middle of the road. I was probably more of the upper end of the oldest. I think our oldest guy we had a 30-year-old. We called him old man. I just turned 44. I'm like, dude, that was not old.
Did he make it?
I would do it. He made it.
Yeah.
He made it. Good old Brent from Tennessee. He's awesome. But yeah, I'd say probably around there.
Yeah.
Low 20s. But yeah, it was good, man. It's the people you're with. It is the people you are with.
Totally. The instructors, because I know they try to switch things up. If they saw a solid crew out of you and your boat crew, did they switch it to just shuffle you all up?
They would do whatever they could to just destroy your hopes, your dreams, all that stuff,
all that fun stuff that Eddie loves.
See, yeah, like just anything. They would totally do it. But we managed to stay, for the most part, to get like the Hell Week. We stayed together the whole time. Like, we just didn't. I think we might have lost a guy from injury only, not quitting, but they had rolled somebody else in. But the core of us, like 5 or 6 of us, stayed together.
That's awesome.
So it was cool. It was real cool.
How long did you get to roll with those guys? Like, when you got out of Buzz, everybody got busted up?
I was with one or two guys. Sorry, 3 or 4 guys from Buds.
Yeah.
We went to the same team, but like only one of those guys were actually in my platoon with me.
Yeah.
So really just one.
Yeah.
So eventually,
and that guy that went with me, he was my Bud's roommate. Here's another thing. We were the only roommates that remained roommates the whole time. Everyone lost someone for quitting or injuries. We were, from day one to the last day, we were roommates. The only two that stayed together the whole time.
That seems unique.
In our class, yeah, it's kind of crazy.
What's that whole time? What's that
6
duration?
months.
Okay, because like Hell Week is like, it's not even, I think a misconception with us is it's right at the beginning, but it's kind of several weeks in, right?
For us, it's week 5. So you have 3 phases, 6 months, 2, 2, and 2. First phase, second phase, third phase. First phase is your basic. Break them down. That's where Hell Week is. Really just destroy you. That's their job, is to mentally and physically break you. And then after you make it through that, you're pretty much going to be all right. Then second phase is dive phase. There's a couple hurdles in there. And then third phase, you're almost guaranteed, which is land warfare, where, shooting, maneuvering, bombs, that kind of cool stuff. So
I saw recently in the news, like they were critiquing how hard Buds is. And it's like, well, yeah, it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
That's a toughie.
That's the point, right?
It is.
That's the point.
So eventually, after a few deployments, you start getting that itch for the tier 1 journey.
Yeah, actually, I got that itch when I first heard about him, which is before I checked into Buds. A guy, my Bud's roommate, Joe, he had a friend that was a team 1 or 3, I can't remember, that kind of showed us around, just like we didn't go to the compound because you don't want to be there. But he kind of showed it, and then he talked about this tier 1 unit. I'm like, what? What is it? It's not that there is a difference. And he kind of he described it as like, it's kind of like the Super Bowl team of the SEAL teams. I was like, okay, cool. That's what I want right there. And that's where the goal started right there. As soon as he said that, I was like, that's it. So I was like, that was the ultimate goal. But you have to do 2 deployments before you get there, before you can even screen. You got to go through a board. You have to do their selection process. And they have another 6-month selection, which is that I think is harder than Bud's because it's operationally, and they destroy you.
What do you lean into that for just a minute to the extent you can? Like, what do you mean by operationally?
So you do like house runs, like you're doing CQB, CQC, whatever you want to call it. You're doing real world, like Halo, hey-ho jumpings, real world type scenario missions, all that stuff. It's like the real deal. It's not like, hey, we're going to get you wet and sandy and have you sit in the surf. We're going to be like, no, I need you to insert here.
Yeah.
You're going to go conduct this mission, and then I need you to extract over here, and then you're going to give us a brief of all the stuff that happened, and then we'll do a hot wash at the end.
There you go. Okay, that makes more sense. It's operator stuff.
Yeah,
it's
but
like,
it's like,
can you do
exactly.
X and Y and Z, not can you sit in the surf and be miserable and take it.
Absolutely.
They already know you can do that.
Yeah, we've already proved ourselves by then. But some guys are getting knocked out right there, like a lot of guys were.
Yeah.
A lot of guys were.
What's the timeline here? Give me a time stamp. That's for Kevin. I always want to ask what the timeline is.
You already hit the bingo tile with Pin It. So.
Pin It, yeah.
So that would have been 2005 or 6.
Yeah, gotcha.
So that was right there. Selection was after 2 deployments at Team 2, which is kind of uneventful.
So that was with the hot wash top 5, bottom 5. I've heard that from a few different books. The top.
Oh yeah.
You're ranking your own people.
Oh yeah.
That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot tougher than having an after action review with your team. Like going into a conference room, I'm trying to push that in the business world.
I don't hate you, but man, you're really slacking over there.
You were the last on my list, Steve.
And you could not leave them blank, or else you would be on the bottom 5. You could not leave them blank. You had to fill in 5 and 5. Plain and simple.
Where'd you put? Do you rank yourself?
I don't think so. I don't remember, but I don't think so.
Because, man, can you imagine that? Like, hey, you know what? I'm going to be selfless. I'm going to put myself in bottom 5.
And
you've got bottom 5 and you're bumped by 1 vote.
I put myself top 1 through 5. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think you can vote for yourself.
And so was there some tough times with that top 5, bottom 5 with results come out? You're like, hey, man, like.
Yeah, actually, when the first week, I actually got made a team leader because I was top 5, I was like, what? Because usually the military is done by rank. SEAL teams, not so much. You can do your job. You're going to do good. All the team leaders were chiefs. I think I was an E6, which are E7. I was an E6. I was a first class petty officer. I had to think about what that rank actually was called. That's how good it is that I'm getting away from the military. Exciting. It's exciting. But I was like the youngest ranking one, which I was like, man, this is awesome. But if they base it off of your operational, so I'm like, okay, I know I'm doing good because you're stressing. You're not stressing. You're just like, man, I hope I'm doing everything all right. Because I mean, like if I don't pan the room the right way, or I shoot a no shoot target or whatever, you're just being watched like a hawk, and they do not miss anything. They are just staring at you, waiting for you to make mistakes. Which obviously, when someone's staring at you, waiting for you to make a mistake, you want to make a mistake. Like, it's just like, yeah, you know, but it was good. But yeah, it was hard. I mean, once people start leaving, your bottom 5 is starting to go up to like, man, I'd go to combat with that guy. Like maybe I'm thirsty, but you had to do it. And I think, I only think it was like for the first 4 weeks, I believe. And they might have done one in midterm. I can't remember, but I remember them doing that. I was like, whoa, what's this? Like, wow, okay.
Yeah, I just want to thin the herd just a little bit in the first few weeks.
Or at least see what we think about the other people. It was effective.
What, so we talked kids early on. So I know that there's a side story here. When how do these two stories interplay? Like wife, kids, stuff outside of the.
So when I was in the Marines, I got married to my first wife. It's so weird saying first wife, but it is what it is. Leah, and we ended up having 3 kids. We were married for 12 years. So Leah and I got divorced, right. I'd say 1 or 2 deployments into when I was at the Tier 1 unit, and just a lot of me being gone didn't help.
Yeah.
I did not put family first. I will totally Roger for that one. I did not put family first. I really screwed that up big time. Wasn't there for my kids. I was always put my job first, and then if there was time for them. I mean, I remember coming back from a trip and just working on my gear, like play with the kids for a little bit, go, do the weekend dad thing, go toss football or do whatever. Not being there and like, hey, how was your day? Like really getting on their level and finding out what's going on. I was a douchebag, man. So yeah, I probably caused my wife to go into a lot of drinking, some drugs, certain things like that. But it still takes 2, but I definitely take responsibility for that.
Well, let's land there for just a second, because I know that's like it has to be a dark place. It has to be a place that's like you're not happy with, right? Like you're kind of you're lingering there on your own here, but like lots of folks feel like they have super high pressure jobs that can't even relate to the one that you had, but struggle with like that idea. Like I'm very busy at work, super stressed, and I come home and I feel disconnected, right? Mm-hmm. So having gone through all that and with the benefit of looking back at it, like, what do you think? Like, man, I wish I'd have done that differently, or here's a way I could have tipped the ball and altered the trajectory of the story, or whatever, with the benefit of hindsight.
I think one would just be kind of like the communication piece, make my family the priority. At that time, when we had Afghanistan going on and we had Iraq going on, I was just like consumed with war. Yeah. It was a high for me. It really was a high for me. The aggression, the adrenaline, it was a drug. It was my drug. I was hooked. And just like everything needs to be about that. If there was a trip to make me better, like to go learn to pick locks or bypass alarms or blow things up, I'm going. Like there's because I need to be as best I can when I get over there. And I thought that, but if I could go back to answer your question, I would put my family first and be like, hey, there's a trip that this could happen. Is it okay if I do this? And I would have stopped a lot of drinking, because when I go on trips, I would drink. That's the truth. And there's some trips I could have turned down. There's some trips I did not need to go on that I could have been home for my family to help out at the house. Cause I know being a single dad, for better part of 10 years, I know how stressful that piece can be, but there's a lot I would have done. But in hindsight, I am where I am now with my wife now and our kids. And like, it's so great. Like those like troubled times and like those bad things that happened, just made me who I am today, which not even close to where I want to be, still making mistakes. Some of them the same, like you're like, dude, what are you doing? Like but it's just definitely better than what I was. I'm like, okay, my family is my priority. Like I can say that it is for sure.
Well, and that's the point really I was kind of angling back towards, is like the idea that making a mistake and then just repeating it over and over again, that's crazy.
Right.
But making the mistake, acknowledging and leaning into it and saying, I'm better than that now.
Right.
That's where growth, that is actually growth.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So
but I would make the same mistakes over and over and over and over again for years and years and years. Cause I was so self-absorbed. It was about Eddie.
Yeah.
And I hate saying that, but that's what it was.
But also, you got to give yourself some grace, because there's some point where you step up and grab all 3, man, and become Mr. Mom.
Yeah,
like that's freaking impressive.
That was almost like seeing Jesus in your room moment.
What do I do? Terrifying.
Yeah, because you like men, we're like, we want to fix things, we want to make things happen. the worst thing that could ever happen to us when we are faced with a problem or a situation and we do not know what to do. It is like tear my arms off. This is horrible. And that's exactly what that was.
Mm-hmm. There's all these little things that happen throughout each day that today I take for granted that would take me exponentially longer than it takes my wife because it comes so natural to her. Mm-hmm. And I have to stop and reflect on that, like, and appreciate it and call her out and give her the thumbs up and the affirmation that, like, hey, you're crushing it. Because as you know firsthand, like, there's a lot that goes into it. Dude, so other than throwing the baseball in the backyard.
Yeah.
Like changing diapers.
Oh, gosh,
laundry,
man,
the endless laundry.
Endless.
These guys got to eat again? Like, what the
That's my Count Dracula.
What do you mean you need a new notebook? Like, no. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. It is like, hats off to all those single parents out there. Like, man, that's like, it's very tough. Very tough.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm just weaving us all over the road here.
That's the beauty of podcasts.
Yeah,
that's
just
good.
Talking and telling stories. So I took us away from SEAL team. I took us away from tier 1.
Mm-hmm.
Tier 1? Yeah, yep. tier 1. I took us away from that. How does the end of that story, what's the end of the military for you? When is this?
So I retired in 2016. From 2003 to 2009 was nonstop deployments. I did miss one deployment. One where we lost a great guy, Adam Brown. He's got the book Fearless.
It's a great book.
I served with him. I missed that deployment because I got the kids. And then the next deployment was Extortion 17, the helicopter that got shot down with all the Spec Ops guys. And the only reason why I was able to make that deployment is because my kids' summer break was a week before we went out the door. So probably 3 or 4 months before when I found out about this, I started training up with them again. Mm. So I was taking care of the kids. I'd kids would get the kids to school, going for whatever training I could possibly make. They said that I could totally jump on the birds and go overseas with them, which I was like super pumped for. Cause like when you're like with your passion and it just seems like it gets ripped out of you because you got custody of the kids, which sounds so bad, but that's the truth of it.
Yeah.
And then you get to go back. It was awesome, but like it was definitely different knowing that I was responsible for 3 little souls and then going over to Afghanistan. I was like, okay, I gotta be careful. Like, how do you do that?
In that job, it's got to be insanely difficult, right? I mean, it is life and death all day. And it is insanely difficult to be careful doing it.
Which is weird. You say that, but it's like, to me and to a lot of guys in that profession, it's a lot more peaceful than it is back at home where there's bills. You got to take the trash out. This kid needs this. The faucet just broke. Like all those little mundane, like those little things that seem so small, dude, whoosh, explosion on some guys, like with just the PTSD and the constant adrenaline. Like if I was doing some brain spotting, it's kind of like EMDR. I don't know if you ever heard of brain spotting. It's kind of like one of the therapies you can do for PTSD. But she kind of labeled it down. She's like, the reason why you feel like your kids are somewhat of a chore, and I don't say that in a mean way, is because they don't give you any adrenaline.
Yeah.
Where the other stuff was giving you constant adrenaline, and you loved it.
Yeah.
Like, this is not the same.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, because you said earlier, addicted to it, right? So like all of a sudden you yank that out, and you're like,
dude, lost little puppy.
Yeah, you're going through withdrawals. Like,
100%. That's a perfect way to put it. Yeah.
So where's my purpose? You know?
So I gave the kids paintball guns to shoot me to bring up the aggression. No.
Yeah, right. No, crank it up.
Guys, come on.
CO2.
I need better ambushes from you two over here.
That's right.
Just hot washing the kids in the bed. Like, look, man, the problem is you swept the yard from left to right. You knew it should have gone right to left.
I don't
know if that means anything or not.
Perfect. It's perfect.
Nailed it. Yeah.
Nailed it.
It translates in the business world. Like I've made this admission that like sometimes I just lose or lack the energy at home because I'm on fire for my purpose at work.
Right.
And I had a mentor tell me like, try to make your family a business, like kind of thing. Like come up core values for your family, just like you have in your business. So I kind of ran that past my wife. She's like, miss me with that. We're not doing core values at this house. This isn't a business. And I'm like,
miss me with
got
that.
it. I'll try something else. And it's mindset. It's a mental reset. When I get in the driveway, I'm like, that energy you just gave your team and they had enjoyed, go give that to your wife and daughter.
Up. Yeah. A guy said the same thing. He's like, treat your family like you would your business. Like all the stuff you pour into those late night hours and all that stuff, anything to get whatever it needs to be done, do the same thing for your family.
That's right.
And it's hard.
Dude.
It is hard. It is hard. I'm not like, it is.
I know I agree. Isn't it a silly thing to say though? Like,
it's extremely silly, but it's the truth. And it's not always like that.
No,
it's not always like that. You're like, man, I had a rough day at work. I just want to be like chill. But like the kids come in like, hey, let me show you this painting.
It's awesome.
That's beautiful. I love it. Can I draw one with you?
Yeah. Our struggle, we have just one child. So it's, will you play with me in my playroom? And it's that is the most common sentence said in the house. And some days I'm like, yes.
I would love to.
Yeah. There's nothing I would like to do more.
Look what's on TV.
I have tablets. No, I'm just kidding.
And then next thing you know, Kev's got a dress on and is doing a tea party.
I'm in on it. Dude, my toenails have been painted pink.
Mine are painted right now as we speak. I actually needed to get them redone.
Yeah. I'll send my daughter over. She's
there you go,
not
perfect.
so good at it,
You're
but
perfect.
Not proficient at all. All right, so I'm going to pick up a couple stories off the prep sheet that I don't know. I have to get you to tell them for me. Okay, story of Lewis. Can we tell that one?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So Louis, God. So this is like the one I was telling you. This is the first chapter we did. So this book actually started in 2014 when I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I like woke up at 2 a.m. and I could not go back to bed. So I just kind of like heard in my mind like, hey, go, let's start a book. Like start a book. And I was like, yeah, me writing. Okay. And I just couldn't fall asleep. And it's just like, go get a pad of paper and get a pen and just do it. Just do it. So I go to my office, I get a legal pad and a pen, come back to my bed at 2 a.m, prop my pillows up and just start writing. And I write out pretty much the whole outline of Unafraid. But at the time I like kind of labeled it facade because I felt like my life is just like everyone sees this SEAL guy, but really I've got so many like demons and battles I'm fighting on the inside. And then I probably wrote maybe 150 pages. What it would be 150 pages in a book.
Yeah.
So I did. So that got shelved for a while, and until 2018, 19, I think I did a shooting course, and I was an instructor for the shooting course, and Keith was writing for Guns and Ammo and NRA. He was writing for him for their magazines. So he was there. So that's where I met Keith. So we put him through the shooting course, and Keith's an awesome shooter. He probably could have taught me. And, but he so we knew each other there, and then we went our separate ways for a while. And that's actually when his other book, that's how a New York Times bestseller, came out. I did a podcast from Mike on Mic Drop podcast that turned out to be really good. A lot of comments were like, "Hey, you should probably write a book. This is a crazy story." Like, and I was very that was pretty much the bone structure for Unafraid.
Gotcha.
So I sent it to Keith. I was like, and I just like, man, maybe I should write a book. Maybe I should pull that, that manuscript or whatever it was, that vomit on paper, and do something with it. So I texted Keith, or I called him. I can't remember which one. I was like, hey, bro, check out this new podcast I did. Tell me what you think. He calls me back like later that day. He's like, dude, that was awesome. He's like, that was so good. And and I knew that he was writing for a mutual friend. So I go, hey, dude, do you think there's a book there? And he goes, absolutely. And I go, do you want to write it with me? And he goes, I thought you would never ask. And then that's just where it started. And he, like, the dude's a phenomenal writer. Like, the guy's super good. And then that's it. We were off to the races. And it for a while, it was going to be called Within War, like the war within me. And then I would say, but like play on words. But it got changed during publishing time. Like, hey, let's change this up a little bit, and it turned Unafraid. So, did I answer the question? I don't remember. I just totally went off on a crazy tangent right there.
You asked about Louis.
Oh gosh, see, not even close.
Well, hold on. Okay, tell me
I did ask about Louis, but it's a really good story. But I think we should at least talk about the bit that God intervenes.
Yeah, I'll get to that. So the reason why I went down that road was because when we actually dug in, Keith goes, where do you want to start? I go, Louis.
Okay.
I want to start there. So we were on an op. A week before this, we lost two buddies, two guys. and walked to, they were clearing the same room, and a machine gunner opened that was fortified, took him out. And that was my first experience of losing friendlies like right next to me, like seeing my buddies like laying there. And it was just, it's just one of those things you don't forget.
Yeah.
And it was the same night that I watched a guy blow himself up with like, brought all his kids in, clacked off a suicide vest, and just blew up him and his kids, destroyed the house, got concussed on that one. So it was like just a crazy night where like for the first time, I'd say, it seemed like we did not have the upper hand because we were dealing with a cell that were, they didn't care if they died. They would blow themselves up, which is very scary to go up against. Like they don't care. Like they'll do anything. And they did. So on the night, this is about a week later, we're extremely cautious of all this. And then so the way it works is like when I was on the assault team. So we have 2 assault teams and you alternate nights on operations. Like we're primary, you guys are secondary, and then you flip flop the next night. So we were secondary that night and they were going to the front door, and we learned to do a thing called a call out because of the suicide vest and the bombs and all that craziness, where we would not rush in, but we would call them out. So if we did see anything nefarious or anything weird, we could take them out. So it was just getting very chaotic. There was a lot of kids, a lot of commotion, and Luis was a EOD guy. He was actually a SEAL and an EOD guy wrapped in one amazing person. Like the dude could do anything. He was like our best shooter. He was legit. And I was acting team leader that night because my team leader was down with the flu or something. When he was sick, he couldn't go out that night. So I was acting team leader. So I came over the radio and I was like, hey, Louis, freaking move up. I called him by his call sign. Hey, move up to the front door and help with the kids, the women and kids. He's like, Roger that, on it. And like 2 seconds later, he hops over the small wall that's maybe 3 or 4 feet, goes to the front door, and he gets behind this big pillar, like this big. It was huge. You couldn't wrap your arms around it. Maybe if you were like Shaq, you could probably wrap your arms around
twice.
it. Like, twice, yeah. But it was that big, and it was on the far corner, like catty corner to where the door was, and there's this big overhang, I'd say probably 2 or 3 foot overhang. Like it wasn't just like some aluminum that was there. It was like concrete bomber style overhang over this front patio area. So if you can imagine like looking at a door to the right of that door, you've got probably 5 or 6 team guys about to go in, and then Louis kind of catty corner off under this overhang. And it's getting real chaotic, and somewhere in all the chaos, a guy gets shot down. Because I remember seeing a guy laying dead at the front door. And it's not good. It's just like you could tell someone was about to go down. Like it was for sure happening. And so I went up to Luis and I was like, hey, bro, here to help. And I like put my arm on him, and I I can remember, I can still see a tiny drip of sweat dripping down his neck. I can smell the dust. You can see it all, and you can feel like the fabric of his gear and his stuff on his camis. And I just looked around and I felt like, because you never want to be bunched up. Like somebody throws a grenade or an explosion goes off, instead of killing one guy, you're killing like 5 to 6. Like you got to keep that dispersion because of the kill radius of certain devices. So it just didn't feel right. And I have a thing called Tom's disease. I think terrified of missing stuff.
Oh, yes.
I have got to be there. Like I always try to always be the first guy in the door, because I was a breacher, so I would blow the door down. I wanted to always be the first guy, because if anything crazy is going on, I want to be that guy. Like I want to figure it all out. Right. So I always wanted to be there. So for me to feel something wasn't right and to pull away was just never happened before. But I did. I heard this, I didn't hear it. It wasn't audible or something. Just like, hey, get out. Like, I need to leave now. Like, right now. It wasn't like in a couple seconds. It was like right now. It was overpower. I can't even describe it because I don't know what it was. So I was like, hey, bro, I'm going to head back behind the wall. There's too many guys here. And he goes, I got it, dude. I'm like, sure. He's like, yep. And I go, I love you. And he goes, I love you too, dude. And I just roll. And as soon as I go back to the gate and wrap this 4 foot whatever wall, the house explodes. And I think I got nailed in the back of the head with a brick, which is not a big deal at all compared to what happened to the other guys. But like the blast goes, the overpressure kind of passes you. You kind of like come to. the dust is starting to settle and you just start hearing the screaming and the whimpering of like dudes. I mean, we had guys that torn knees, double femur fractures, compound, freaking broken backs. We had a buried dog. So I go into the courtyard. I put my foot down. I feel something grabbing it. It's our dog, Digo. He's grabbing my boot. And I realized what it was at the time. So I ripped my boot out. I think I got a couple of his teeth, but like I was worried about the dudes. But like our guys on the guys that were stacked on the right side of the door at the initial of the story, they're covered in like rubble, like just like all these bricks and concrete and just stuff, debris. And they're like kind of helping each other. Other guys are tending to them over there. And I go right where Luis was. And that stanchion, that pillar that was there is no longer there. And I'm like, what the heck? But you can see this, like that big, like overhang that I described, and it kind of slid. It seemed like it slid over and just crushed him because there was an opening on the far side where we could get under and you could grab his calf, and his calf had like no bone structure. It felt like a Jello mold. It felt like just Jello, and he was just dead right there. Like he passed right there. And it's just, that's my toughest one for sure, because I got this little bit of survivor's guilt, because I'm like, man, if I just wouldn't have told him to go over there, if I just would have shut up, not came across comms and asked him to help out, if I just would have if I just wouldn't have said those things, you know, he'd be here. I think he would be here. And then just that voice playing over and over again, like, get away, get out. It's never happened. Never happened. I mean, there's been other times where, you know, I've done certain things where normally I wouldn't, but and then afterwards, like I go back to the Christ story where I'm like, I realized he was with me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's good, man.
I remember the first time that I realized, and I just heard, it was like, he was like, yeah, it was me.
Mm-hmm.
It was me. And it was him. And I'm like, man, like just, there so many times in such crappy situations, didn't care, just, and shame. I mean, not shame on me. I didn't know. I guess I didn't know better, but not realizing it was him. And he didn't hold grudges. He didn't judge. He's like, I got you. Like he's like, I got you. And he has me to this day still. And I've learned, has an amazing sense of humor to let you learn sometimes the hard way. But man, he's just like, just knowing that he's there and that he's got me and that he's just like not even looking down, that he's right here with me is amazing. It's amazing. And just when I realized that stuff, and then I'd go back to other things like in training, or when I thought I was hurt, or my knee was blown out and I couldn't walk up this mountain, but I did walk up the mountain to get the bad guy. Just all these things, or how'd I raise 3 kids? How'd I do that? It wasn't me. Yeah. You know, he gives you what you need, puts the right people in your life. And it's just, and I look back and I'm like, man, I wish I knew him longer. You know, I wish he was in my life front and center, from the very beginning. I just, but he wasn't. And I go back to the people that tried to put him in my life, but the devil was so good. And I go back to that where I was so scared. So I remember when Jesus was there, it was this nice luminant of light, and it was peace. I wasn't really feeling anything, but as soon as it went dark, when that darkness hit, I was scared. I was so scared. The devil played me for so freaking long, man. He's played me for so freaking long. I hate that fool. Like he just played me, and he did a good job. He's good at it.
And there's something beautiful in the story though about how you have all of that past to create your own story to tell, right? That is, and as much as I know you wished from the current vantage point, you'd have known Jesus forever, you wouldn't have these stories to tell.
Very true.
Potentially.
Very true.
And so there's something like beautiful in like the omnipotence of God for your story to have unfolded like it is so that you can tell it.
Right.
Right. And so I hear you in that regard, but man, don't, and I know you don't, but like the story is beautiful in the way it was created perfectly by God.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
You know,
you're right.
There's something to that, man.
You're right. And I appreciate that. But yeah, it's, God, he's awesome. He's so freaking cool. I'm like, man, like he's just so good. And like, and through that, like that phase when I went to Wild at Heart the first time, and this is in the book as well, is like, of course, you like, I'm like testing God here. Like, are you really real? Like, can you really forgive me? Because I'm like, God, I've shot and taken out a lot of dudes, a lot of them, and some younger than, 10. I mean, because they were doing bad things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you forgive me? How does that work? And I'm like, am I really saved? And I put this in there. I came to the stoplight, and there's this car wash over to my right as I'm driving. I'm at the stoplight, and I'm in there in my car crying. Since God, I've cried. I cry a lot now.
Yeah.
There's these things out there called feelings and emotions. It's nuts.
Yeah. You found those too.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I was like, how can you do it? And I'm like kind of tearing up, and I'm talking out loud in my car. I'm like kind of like getting on. I'm like you show me, like seriously, man, like enough of this crap. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to believe. This spiritual warfare. There's this thing called, Satan, blah, 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 all the stuff. Like, show me I'm saved. Like, tell me I'm okay. And on this board by this car wash, the red digital writing, it said saved, SAVED. It didn't say save 10%. It didn't say buy one, save one. It just said saved, the one word. And then that crying that I told you I was doing, I was in a full on meltdown of awesomeness. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, and it's just like, all right, I'm like, I'm yours. Yeah. I'm yours. And of course there's highs and there's lows, and I've try to learn so much. But I mean, one thing that it got me is like, I want to learn as much about him. So like the reading, I'm like a fiend for like spiritual books and like the Bible, and just trying to get in because I'm like, I want to know it. Like that, back to that Tom's disease. Like I need to know. Mm-hmm. But it's beautiful. It's so, and I look back at myself, I'm like, man, if only I would have had this back then, like, gosh. And then I see like friends that kind of laugh at it or gaff it off or whatever. Like, oh yeah, like that's for the week or whatever. And I'm like, and I can't say anything. Because I used to be that guy.
For sure.
I used to be Saul that turned to Paul. Like, I used to be that guy. But it's just like, how do you plant that seed? And I think that's it, where you just plant the seed by your works, like by showing it, right, by being the example, not force feeding it and let God take it over. And like, I always think of like that blade of grass or that plant that pops up through the concrete.
Oh yeah.
It's like, that was a seed once, and that burst through concrete, which is way stronger than anyone's little freaking mind up there. Like what they're like, oh, I'll never believe that, or I'll never do this, or I could never feel this way. And then I look at, my personal life of like where I was so dark and just anti, I thought Jesus was Satan. I thought he was the bad guy. Like he is the bad guy that belongs somewhere not here. And, yeah, it's crazy, man. It's nuts.
I was that guy. I wasn't saved till I was 25. Mm-hmm. And now I fast forward to today, and there's something rich about immersing yourself. And I'm kind of like an all in or all out type of person. And man, Life Church, which we go to, I'm there on Sunday. I started serving Switch on Wednesdays. I'm talking to Sam. I'm talking to all the other pastors. And like, there's this closeness now. Like I told you off air, like back-to-back days where I know that's him. Mm-hmm. And one of the most important things to me, because I didn't have him growing up, is I'm bringing my daughter there every single week. There's no online counts. I get that, but like I'm physically bringing her there every single week
in person,
because I'm going to fail her. My wife's going to fail her. Every person around her eventually is going to fail her, but not him. And I want her to have that relationship with him. And just have a better chance. We try to accelerate the learning curve for our people in our lives that, for work and for family. I just want that for her. Mm-hmm. So like part of it's my faith, and obligation, but it's also, I want to break some generational curses, and I want her to have that.
I hear you.
I want her to have that from the beginning.
Yep. That's good. Good on you. Good on you. And it's not easy.
No,
it's not easy.
I forgot, like, because some of these notes were actually mine, and that one in all caps was actually my note. Like, it's not his story. I'm not yelling at you in that. Just because you're saved doesn't mean you're home free.
Oh heck no. Oh my God, no.
What's funny is I
thought so though when I got saved.
Yeah,
and I was wrong.
If that was the case, everyone would be like, yeah, this is easy. This is perfect. There wouldn't be this thing called a war. You know what I mean? So
good point.
Yeah. Well, actually, when I saw that in the prep sheet, I was like, oh, yeah, that's Kev.
Yeah.
I knew what that was.
Hopefully you knew I wasn't yelling at you. But yeah, my toughest days came 2 years after I was saved.
You've told that story before, but it's definitely, you don't get a check the box free pass. Like that doesn't exempt you from the attack and from the mental war. And from
I think it's more. You're a follower of Christ, and you speak it, and you try to teach your kids the best way possible to follow Christ. The devil's going to pour it on.
Oh yeah,
he's going to pour it on, and then once you beat that stronghold, he's coming back with his buddies. So stand by. Like it's a bout after a bout after a bout. The real scary part is when you're not having those bouts. That's when you really need to check yourself. Like, oh boy,
yeah,
like, I need something, man. I need a battle.
Yeah.
There's a funny like video game adage that says if you're not fighting all the bad guys, you're going the wrong way.
That makes sense.
So kind of the same point, right? Like if you're not fighting all the bad guys, you're going the wrong way.
I've heard Denzel say almost exactly what he said to TD Jakes.
Say what?
He was at some sort of deal with TD Jakes that if you're not fighting those battles, you should be really concerned.
Yeah, you got to be battling.
Yeah,
you got to be battling.
All right, so I'm going to take us back to story time. It's at some point we talked about it earlier. You retire from the military. What happens next? You wrote the book. We kind of been weaving that in and out, but I know that's not all of the story.
No, I retired in 2016, and in 2013, I started a company called Contingent Solutions, which turned to Contingent Group, which was, I did my bud's roommate, Joe, he reached out. He's like, hey, you want to do something? Because he knew I wasn't deploying. I was in Tulsa doing a coordinator/recruiter job for my last 3 years so I could retire. So during that time, I got my degree in security management. Internally, I'm flipping out. What do I do? Because there's not really a high demand for mercenaries out here on the streets. So I'm like, what do I do with my life? So he had me go do some executive protection for him with some people over in Europe. I was like, I could turn this into a full-time job. I can see this. I just add some more intel stuff, do this, and then turn it into like a customized security. Like we just take care of whatever your situation is. It's not like a cookie cutter.
Yeah.
It's whatever your situation is for corporations, individuals, families, whatever it may be. So turn that into Contingent Group, and I did that full-time pretty much about a year out of getting out, and then that's just what I've been doing since. And then there's little shooting instructor jobs here where a couple buddies got like, hey, you want to do this? Some contracting jobs, doing stuff like that. And then now Contingent Group's still going, and now I'm kind of like slowly kind of bringing in a guy to take over operations, very slow. And then I started the Unafraid brand, I'd say about 2 or 3 years ago. And that was just a t-shirt. And now it's somehow kind of morphing its way. Now I'm like, I want to do more speeches. And you know, it's kind of funny as you're talking about the God thing, right? I was talking to Keith actually. I'm like, man, I need to get on stage. I want to go do some speaking events. I want to talk about the book. I want to talk about stories. I want to try to fill as much people as I've been filled by like certain people, right? And like Craig, like, dude,
beast.
I love listening to him. Like, show me more. Like, your time is not up. Get back up there.
Yeah. We're
not raising our hand just yet. And so I was like, yeah. So a buddy that I was in the teams with reached out, and he's like, hey, I want to get some books. I was like, sure. I was like, well, tell me how many you want to do a bulk purchase. I'm like, tell me, I'll give you the good old boy discount. I'll send them to you. And he's like, I don't want a discount. I'm paying. I'm like, come on, dude. He's like, how about this? I'm like, all right, sounds good. So I send, he said the book was really good, which is good coming from another team guy. I didn't write it for other team guys. I wrote it for humans that actually have feelings and emotions. But like hearing from a team guy, like, hey, it was really good. And I mean, it meant a lot. So I sent a screenshot to Keith. He's like, dude, that's awesome. So he looks it up. He's like, dude, he does tons of speaking, which I knew he did, but I didn't think about it. So I reached out. I was like, hey, man, how do you get into the speaking world more? So he's like, hey, we'll set it up. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. So I'm like thinking, I'm telling my wife about this, Amanda, and I'm like, man, I want to do like, how do I, because I love the mindset. I love talking about mindset. I think it's like the foundation to everything. And in that mindset is your faith. So I'm like, how do I talk about, like, kind of bring the faith piece into the mindset? I'm like, I just don't know how to do that. Like put a like what's the format, all this stuff. So yesterday a guy called me. I did a podcast for this church because he just wanted to hear, because I'm very vocal about certain things. Like I'm not afraid to tell you like, hey, I was scared. I was crying. He's like, hey, I just want to do a podcast. I'm like, okay, cool. I haven't talked to this guy for like over a year. He calls me. So I'm like, I got to answer this. So I answer it. He's like, hey, Eddie, 2 things. 1, can you come speak to my church next year around Memorial Day or 4th of July? And it's like, yeah, okay. He's like, another thing. And he's like, and you could just tell he was being obedient in that moment. I could just tell that he was being obedient. He's like, I want to help you to take your story and make a couple sermons.
There you go.
He's like, I want to teach you how to put it. I'm like,
come on.
Yes. And yes. And yes. Yeah. And I'm like, he's saying this and it's chills. He's like, this just feels right. I'm supposed to do this. He's like, I think he's like, you got to get a story. And he's like, you speak pretty well. He's like, I think you need to be in front of people. I was like, man, like, thank you. And like, thank you. Like, it was just like, wow. Like just back to that God moment. It's just like, and with the funny piece about this, I was on another podcast 2 weeks ago that mic drop again, like to talk about the book. Cause that's where it kind of like really started.
Yeah.
And I said something and I go, and he asked me, he goes, would you ever get into politics? And I was like, if it was laid on my heart and like, it's definitely a God thing, then absolutely. And he kind of looks at me and he goes, what's the God thing? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes like, what do you mean? I'm like, when you know something's supposed to be right. And he goes, no, please explain this. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, when things just kind of seamlessly happen and like, just like step after step and you're not really even working for it. You're like, you would call it a coincidence, but it's not a coincidence. And that just happened. I was like, so I have to call Mike now and be like, remember that question. This is what I'm talking about. So
yeah, there you go.
Man, that's awesome.
But yeah,
also Eddie for president. Are we?
No.
Oh,
my God.
I thought we were.
DC is hell.
Governor?
Oh, dude.
No. Okay.
I think just like you never say never, but I try to be led now instead of like, oh, I'll go do this because Eddie knows. No, Eddie, you know nothing. Like, 2 divorces, you're done. You're done picking your battles.
Dude, you're going to bless so many people just because like the number one thing for me is how real you are. Like you're willing to show your real emotion.
I think we need more of that in this world, man.
Totally.
We need it bad. We need it bad.
Well, and like, let me overstate something that's obvious. It means more, like vulnerability means more from you. Because the exterior, the story is tough.
Right.
And from like an archetype perspective, you're the guy who doesn't be vulnerable, right? You're the guy who like saw it, kept it in, braved it through, plowed on, you know what I mean?
Right.
It means more from you. And I think people see that and think more of it, right? As opposed to like maintaining the facade, right? Like the rough exterior. Yeah. So I mean, kudos to you, man. Kudos to you.
That's good. I just hope it, like I really want, like, you know what though? Like it goes back to, who's super real is Craig. Craig's very real.
Mm-hmm.
Craig Rochelle from Life Church. Like he is real. I admire that. Like that man is a mentor. Like he's very real. Like he like this series that we're going through now, like he was very vulnerable, like the stuff he was dealing with. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Like why don't we talk about this stuff? People are struggling in their skin because we're not talking about it. We're trying to put this like facade of like my life is perfect post.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like we're not. We're all struggling.
It is a historical shortcoming of the modern church where you put your fancy clothes on to go to church and you pretend like everything's okay. And I think I think the church, capital C church, is wrestling with that idea, which has created a stigma, which has created like this pedestal upon which no one can fall, right? Like, so if anybody in the church has like a chink in their armor, all of a sudden nothing's real, right? God doesn't exist because look, that guy did that thing or whatever. And folks like Craig and other, prominent pastors and folks just chatting and saying, no. I believe in Jesus. And also I struggle with X.
Yeah.
Like that's
because I am a human.
Because I'm a human.
Yeah.
And we're starting, I think, productively to break down that barrier stereotype. I don't know what the right word is here. By talking more and saying, you know what, actually that's not true. I don't do that thing well or whatever,
Right.
I wonder, are we just getting older? And like, so like, are 20-year-olds and early 30-year-olds doing that?
Well, I can speak to that a little bit. I mean, I'll tell my own story in the midst of it just for illustrating.
Your kiddos?
Yeah, William is in a small group of kids. They're 14. They're headed to high school. They've been running with these same guys. So shout out to Keith and Carter and Austin. Been running with them since they're in the 6th grade. They talk about vulnerable stuff, and they talk about
That's good.
Man, I don't know what to do about this. And they talk about, whatever. And they've, that group, like I asked William the other day, I was like, do you feel comfortable sharing with those kids stuff that you wouldn't share with me, whatever the case may be?
Right.
Like, do you trust those bros? And he's like, yeah. Like I would tell them whatever.
That's rare from what I know.
Oh, for sure it's rare, but I think it's starting to, the corner starts to turn with one small movement. And
you're setting the example, bro. You have a men's group that's from church that he knows you're vulnerable with.
Yeah.
And he's setting the example.
He sees it and we talk about it. And part of it is like parenting through that too, is that I have no airs of telling, and I've said this on here before, I'm just kind of conversationally bringing it back, is of pretending like I know everything as a parent, right? Like I tell them all the time I screw up. I tell them all the time, like, man, what I'll say is, guess how many times I've parented a 14-year-old boy? Once right now. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Let's talk about it. How does that make you feel? Is that right or wrong? And there's no qualms. Like I call balls and strikes because I'm the dad, but like, we're going to talk about it.
Right.
That's different. It's different than growing up in the diggity whatevers. And
right.
It's different. And
our therapy was going to get hammered.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's
a good suppressor.
I don't feel good. Cool. Let's go get hammered. I'll be your wingman. Let's go. That was it. That was okay. Cool. Right. I feel better.
You don't work on things. You suppress them.
Exactly.
Right. As opposed to, hey man, like last night sucked. Can we go get coffee tomorrow? And I need to tell you something that you would never ever have said before.
Right. It just didn't. No one ever talked about it. I didn't even hear about it until what we'd call the Christian thing.
Yeah. Right. Right. It's funny that the people who are supposed to have it all together are trying to like turn the corner and say, no. We're still people too.
Yeah.
We believe in things and we approach things differently. We have a certain belief paradigm that changes like what our trajectory is, but we don't have it all together.
Exactly.
We are wrestling through this alongside you, with you, for you, etc.
Oh, exactly. Like I can even imagine, like, you hear, like, you always hear like, oh, this pastor got caught doing this or got doing that. Like, dude, I can't imagine how attacked they are. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm in the military, right, or like what they did in Vietnam, take out the officer or like throughout, like mass chaos, no one knows what's going on. You take out the church head, oh baby, right? Yeah. Like everyone's like, I don't believe anything he said. Like the devil would just be smiling, grinning, happy, and he's doing it all the time. I don't say what happens is because like that's justified, not at all, but yeah.
That is, rewind the last 2 weeks, you'll find that story in the Metroplex. It is not uncommon to see it, and whether it's true or false or right or wrong or whatever the case may be, the devil is working the church.
Oh, heck yeah, he is.
Or around the church, I should say. Trying to do exactly that. Absolutely. Take out the officer.
Absolutely. I would do the same thing.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to make sure we hit on Amanda and the family and ultimately get to that freaking Mother's Day, because that is so awesome.
The happiness, where there is happiness, the gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah.
So I met Amanda 3.5 years ago when I moved down here, and she was at the gym, and I remember, I was actually dating someone else at the time, and I remember seeing her at the gym, and I was like, stay away from that woman. That is not good. You're not allowed. And I stayed away for like 6 months, and we ended up like just talking, like super friend. Like Amanda's the first woman I've been with that we did not do anything physical for 2 years. So we like developed this friendship. So like you always hear like, don't have sex before marriage or all that stuff, and you're like, what? Like you're crazy.
Yeah.
Like I see what they mean, and I'm going to be like, no, we did not. We did. Okay, cool. We sinned. That there it is. Like we did not wait. I wish we did. We did, but we did not do anything physical until we were like in a relationship. There was no messing around. She was going through a divorce, and when that was done, and then my situation was done, and we were just like friends. It was so weird. So this like foundation was awesome. Like she's my best friend. First and foremost, like what would you say about Amanda? Like she's my best friend. Like she's just so cool.
Yeah.
And so we like began hanging out, and then we end up dating, and she brought in, we have a total of 5 kids. So we have one that's out. She's 22. She actually has a son. So we were grandparents, which is hilarious because Amanda's like, dude, you're a grandpa. And I'm like, we're married, which makes you a grandma. Yeah. So I'm like, you're a hot grandma.
Join the club.
So it's all cool, right? You got you got one?
No. That's what you're telling
got
her.
you. I was like, yeah. I'm like, dang, we're raging. Then we have an 8-year-old daughter, which is mine, and then we have 3 in the house. So she's got 2, a 9, and a 10. I'm sorry. God, I forget. There's so many of them. 7 and 9, and then Tristan, the one that was 10 months old. He's 13 now.
Yeah.
So we've got 3 in the house, and then we just like, and that whole when we were dating, she came over for that Mother's Day. And we had everything like, I'm like, we got to do this like awesome. So we printed out these like awesome like brunch menus, like with the little designs, and everything was market price, I think. Because we know how much we price.
Fancy.
Market price. Here's your bill. Yeah. And then when she pulled up in the car, like I'm there in a suit, and she's just, I think, in her workout clothes, because she usually just wears workout clothes. She pulls up and she just starts crying. She's like, okay, what's going on? And it was just like, it was just awesome. Like, I'm going to be with this woman. Like, I'm marrying this woman. And we take her in the house and then walk down the hallway. And then there's Tristan with his little sports coat on, with a little crap-eating grin. And he just hands her a red rose, single red rose.
Yep.
And she goes, sits down in her favorite chair next to the fireplace. And then Sammy brings over like a mimosa and the menu, or like some appetizers and then whatever. And then we sit down to have brunch. Like we made like she loves filet, like shrimp, scallops. Like we went pancake, like we went all out. Sammy made her cupcakes. And then Sammy pulls out this letter for Amanda for Mother's Day. And she reads this very sweet letter. And I'm like losing it. I'm in tears. Tristan's like, what's going on, dudes? Like he's probably 11 at the time, 10 at the time. And Amanda's crying, like we're over there, like I'm not crying, you're crying, like we're trying to figure this out. And then like, oh, that was very sweet. That's awesome. Okay, let's like no more because like I can't stress enough how feelings and emotions like destroy me. Like I do not understand. I don't. Many decades of not using them.
Yeah,
because I just didn't. I couldn't, and I really don't know. It's been a process for the last, I mean, it's a big process. It's always like, you don't listen, you don't feel. I'm like, oh, how am I supposed to feel? I'm not you, man. Like, what does this mean? Yeah. So I'm trying to learn all these things, like reading books, counselors, like you name it, like trying to do it all. And so I'm like, all right, let's get back to the meal. Cause Dad's getting weird. Like, I feel like I'm on the roller coaster about to go down the big hill. Like that's what I feel like every time. I can't help it. And she's like, well, I'm not done. I was like, what do you mean you're not done? And then she pulls out another letter. And I'm like, I can't do another round. Like, I just got knocked out. Like, you can't. And she goes, Dad, this is for you. And she goes, you have been the dad and the mom in our lives for the last, like, 10 years. And I'm like, and she reads this letter. And I'm done. I'm done. And like, the things that she said, I don't know if she was manipulating or she wanted something later on in life or something, but what she said was just like I was like, man, I was like, out of all the like mess ups and I failed at this, and just for her to say those words just meant so much. It was so awesome. And so now we have 3 kids in the house because Sammy moved out. She's 18 now. But yeah, man, it's cool. Like it's still like we just talking about. It's still a struggle. Like we still struggle. I don't understand the things that she's talking about. Sometimes she wants to talk about emotions and feelings. I just want to like, can we go work out or something? Like, can we go hit the heavy bag? Like, but like it's been a process, and she's like held me extremely accountable. She's been a great support system. She's been all in for me, like trying to help out through all the stuff. And I mean, she's been put through the ringer. I mean, I've dealt with PTSD issues, like trying to figure things out, anger issues, like trying to figure things out and not really realizing that maybe I'm the problem. I mean, it's like ongoing. It's just like, it never ends. And, but looking back from like where I started to where I am now is like 2 different people. So it's like really cool. But she's been there for me, and she's still there for me right now. And I hope that she has dinner on the table. No, I'm totally kidding.
You just pulled a Kevin there, bro.
Totally kidding.
And the laundry.
The laundry.
No.
Maybe the next book.
Yeah, that's in the next book.
No, but she's great, man. She's
the next
awesome.
if you take that to the house, the next book's gonna be called Afraid.
Afraid, extremely afraid, ran away.
Same cover, just the U and the N crossed out.
Marked out. Yeah, just Afraid.
Dude, what a full circle moment. If you don't pick up the book for anything else other than that, go check that letter out. Read it.
Man. Yeah,
it's a full circle moment.
It is. It's crazy, man. And she's like, they just texted me for my birthday the other day. Like, it's just like, oh my gosh, like, and I'm always apologizing. I probably apologize too much. I'm like, I'm so sorry I did this. Like, someone will come up and like, just text them like, hey, I love you guys. Again, sorry about that one time I did, that I yelled when I didn't listen to you and I was totally wrong and act like an idiot. So
and it's part of like the overarching reconciliation process to all of it.
Yeah.
Just identifying it, leaning into it, processing it, moving on.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's awesome.
That's all that Sadie wants sometimes.
What's that?
I am talk about a work in progress. Just me saying I'm sorry. And I'll look at her and I know she wants it and I'm just like, nothing. It's like, say it. Say those words.
Siento.
Yeah.
You're going to have to write the book.
So that's my one thing out of Eddie is say I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all I got to do.
I've learned that my apologies does not work as well as I'm sorry. I just got called out for that one. I'm like, my apologies. And the reason why I say my apologies is my pastor one time it goes, say my apologies. It means more. I'm like, okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
My wife does not like that. She's like, why don't you say I'm sorry? I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't say I'm sorry. And then I was on a business call and a guy was late returning an email for whatever. And it was on speaker in the car and Amanda's in the car and he goes, hey man, my apologies. And I would go, it's all right, buddy. And I look over at my wife. Did you see what he did there?
Yeah.
Did you see what he said? My apologies. It's not a big deal. It's okay. He makes the same thing.
Yeah.
Hi, hello. All right.
All of them count.
It's good.
Start up a new iPhone. All of the OLAs.
Exactly.
Hello. In every language. Just start a new one.
Yes.
It's all of them.
Yes.
Same thing.
Yeah.
But not.
I hope she doesn't listen to this.
Just cut the last part out. It'll be fine.
You got to keep it. You got to keep it.
All right. So I'm sure we've a lifetime of stories. I'm sure we've missed a good one. But so jump in here if you're like, hey man, you forgot this one. But usually there's I know, right?
It depends on what's going on in my brain that day.
Well, usually if you throw one in here, if you think of it, but usually the way we wrap up is what we've been calling our 2-step, which is a book you've read that's awesome, in addition to Unafraid, and like one big thing as you look back past through the story of your life, like as you think about like what's something that you take with you that's like a calling card or a thing that just like resonates with you or whatever. So hit me with a book if you got one.
I don't want this to sound weird, but honestly, the Bible.
Number 2.
Yeah. There's 104 guests. It hasn't been brought up as often as you would think.
Yeah,
for
it's
1720.
It's the right answer.
I'm in the middle of reading. I'm on 2 Peter, like going through the New Testament, reading it again. Like it's just the stuff. It is the book of life because it literally, there's a hand that reaches out, it grabs your face and says, you better read this part again because you're messing up, or we need to do more of this or whatever. Like it is just so real. And it's like, and if you look at the stories like, oh, I'm not some biblical character. Like, no, you're exactly like a biblical character because they all mess up too. Yeah. And they all got redemption and they did this and they did some great things, but like, man, dude, so that's my number one. But mindset books. I love mindset books, positivity books, shifting your brain from the negative thoughts to positive. That's one thing I've learned throughout my career is the more positive you are, is the better off you'll be. You really can't help your situation you're in at all times, but what you can help is the way you think.
Totally.
You can totally do that. I remember going back to like cheesy stories it is, like our first time doing surf torture where we would lock arms, we'd go out to the cold water of the Pacific and the waves would crash over you. And it's cold. It's like 55 to 65 degrees year round out there. And you're out there and they're watching, you got doctors watching you like, all right, when are these guys borderline hypothermic? And they make you do this, sit up, you got to do it together. And like when your arms are linked with like 100 people, like doing a sit up linked is not the easiest thing in the world. You get pulled every which way, then the waves are hitting you. But I remember there's this guy there and he unfortunately quit the third day, but he was the funniest dude. He would just like, every time a wave would come crashing down, he'd be like, oh my God. And me describing the story right now seems extremely annoying. Yeah. And me to myself, I'm like, that's really not even a good story. It's not even funny at all. But dude, like the third or fourth time, it was so funny. About the 500th time, it was like I was done. I couldn't breathe. I was laughing so hard. And I'm like, dude, the positivity, the humor, because I didn't think about the cold anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't think about the cold. And it's like, but that mindset thing, man, is like everything. That mindset is it all. Now, for that mindset to be where it's supposed to be, I believe that there's so many things that need to go into there, like your faith. You need to, and you don't need to be, to speak to all audiences. Like for me, it is Christ. 100% it is Christ. But other people, it might be some kind of meditation or find that like quiet time to let your brain just be shut down. To do what it is, but like your food, your family, the fitness, all the people you hang out with, what are you reading, what are you listening to? Like all those things go into the mindset that you have. If I go play, I mean, but if I play Tupac right now, we're gonna go gangbanging right now. We're gonna go crazy. But if we're playing some like worship music, we're gonna be like, all right, this is awesome. This is like good stuff. Or like Frank Sinatra, you're gonna get a different mindset.
Yeah,
plain and simple. So I believe all those things are kind of the make up your mind. And that's what I'm really passionate about. I really like trying to coach or encourage people to make certain decisions in their life to get a better mindset. Because you got a better mindset, you're going to affect the people around you. They're going to have a better life. That just your whole world is just going to start morphing and morphing and morphing and morphing into an awesome neighborhood, town, city, state, country, right? And that's the goal is that right there, man. Like that's everything.
Boom.
Mindset.
How many times have I said boom?
Yeah.
A bunch. But
boom's good.
Boom's
a good one.
Boom is good right there.
I usually follow a good text with a boom and a little explosion.
He hasn't even met me yet, and I hit him with several of my GIFs.
Oh, no.
I get a lot of GIF conversations going, like the animated text.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It livens it up a little bit.
It's funny how communication works. Like the closer you are to somebody, the more GIFs that person gets. It's funny how that works.
So I don't get many GIFs.
You get. What are you
I'm
talking
just
about?
kidding. I get all the GIFs. I think we go days just gifting each other.
You hurt his feelings.
I know.
No, it's messing. All right, Kev.
Man, just proud of you. Proud of you for this.
Thanks,
journey.
brother, man. I appreciate it, dude. Seriously.
And you're making a profound impact. There's no doubt about it.
I hope so. I just this is like at a point in my life where I'm like, man, when you think your story's over, and I really thought that for years. I'm like, I'm not a SEAL anymore. That was my identity, which is pathetic. It's over. I'm taking care of 3 kids. I'm going to be Mr. Mom, Daddy Daycare, whatever you want to name it. Freaking the pacifier. Like that's my job. I'm like, dude, my story, like I believe it's just begun. I'm like, I need to take that with the right people, the right wisdom, and like just go forth, whatever way that I don't know what that looks like. I'll be shown, I believe. And it's exciting. It's kind of exciting not knowing. It's like Christmas morning. What's in that box, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's so it's like it's cool. I'm very thankful.
I'm
extremely
pumped up
thankful
for you, man.
Extremely.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us,
dude.
This is fantastic,
guys. This is awesome. And the room, it's like, I don't think we don't do videos, right?
No.
If you could see this room, it's like Mozart's like sound system in here. This is freaking awesome.
Yeah, me studio SU studio. How do you say that? If you need it, man, come on.
Now.
Whatever you said. That's it.
I was trying to like Mikasa Esukasa.
Yeah.
It's good. You got a good spot.
Come on. Anytime you need it, come on over here, man.
I appreciate that.
All right. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you.